You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're with Gowri here today on your Anything Can Happen Friday, where we bring you the arts and culture side of Southeast Asia. And today we will be talking to a performance maker all the way from the Philippines, and he's gonna talk to us about the theater scene in Manila, about his own venture, the Sipat Lawin, and also some insights on the way forward in the Manila theater industry. So with me this morning, it's my pleasure to introduce and say hello to JK Anicoche, who is a performance maker as well as the artistic director of Sipat Lawin. Hello, hi, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Gowri. Good morning, Malaysia.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No problem, and I appreciate the fact of you joining us this morning. So maybe we can start off, JK, by telling me a little bit about Sipat Lawin and what do you do exactly with them as the artistic director?
Okay, so I am JK Anicoche, the artistic director of Sipat Lawin Ensemble. Sipat Lawin is a contemporary performance company, and we are an interactive participatory performance company working with communities. So as of now, we are turning into a contemporary cultural laboratory. So we are creating performances, mostly interactive and participatory works where we involve our audiences. It is an artist-run company where we're composed of 8 core members with different practices from literature to pop culture to technical theater. And we're producing works and series of workshops and festivals to encourage and to create platforms for development of new works among contemporary performance makers in Manila. So we're doing a lot. It's quite challenging to describe, but yes, primarily we are interested in development work and performance making. So that has been the thrust of the company. Yes.
Maybe you don't have to explain everything, but perhaps highlight some of the recent projects that you've done. And I understand you've also recently made trips to Japan and Australia, and you're working something with them as well. So maybe you can share that with us.
Yes. So Sipat Lawin's most recent work is called Gobierno. So it's a participatory work where we ask audiences to create scenes and to create a documentary about their ideal governments. So this is we are creating the performance as a platform for rehearsing possibilities. So this had been this is going to be launched as a full-length performance in 2016, but we've been to Korea to prototype some sequences like the urban planning scene, where we ask our Korean audiences, working with a Korean performance company, we ask audiences to imagine an ideal government, an ideal space that they have in Korea. While in the Philippines, we started doing scenes where we ask audiences to create a speech by the leader of the country or by the president and film it and show it in front of them. So that's one of the works that we do. We are interested in looking for social functions as performances and performances as social functions. So we've been exploring the idea of crowdsourcing content. So we have this work in 2013 that is coming back next year, perhaps in Australia. It's called Love, Not Just a Musical, where we ask people to send anything or everything in any format or media, anything about love. So we have people send us like tweets, Facebook status, poems, monologues, scripts, PowerPoint presentations of their breakups, and all these things about love, or even political love poems that so we had like 500 contributions with 300 contributors, and we get them all together to create this whole new myth about love. So the question is, can you experience love in a in a performance? So it's really a big task. But because of its nature, where we encourage, there's no separation between audiences and performers.
So I'm curious to know about your Gobierno project when you got the participants to recreate ideal situations or even to create ideal speeches that they want to hear from their politicians. What was your expected outcome from doing this?
Our expected outcome is we want to produce documentaries created by people from different sectors and post them online to inform each other or even the politicians. In the Manila context, there's going to be an elections in 2016. So this documentary is made by the people, are the aspirations of the people, and here's to looking at different. These are like the demands of the people, and these are the possibilities that they want to see from their leaders. So we want to create a database of this ideal governments by the people, and put it online as a resource for a lot of people, especially policymakers. It's also we plan and we dream of integrating this work with a lot of policymakers or even cultural leaders, so that we can start a possible discourse or conversation.
So it's more of like a reaction of the people that you want to portray to the state leaders.
Yes, and at the same time, I think it's more like because if you use rehearsal as if we create performances as rehearsal for revolution or possibilities, it's also like encouraging people to think of better ways of coexisting and living together and finding their voice in the process. So yeah.
And what about the people who are involved? Were they school children or were they from colleges? What were the age range?
For this project, for the creation process, we are looking at involving people not just from performance but from urban planning, from social sciences, anthropologists, or even lawmakers. We're also looking at working with food experts. And the audiences will differ every night. So it depends. If we do it in the Philippines, like one night, it's just open for the women's sector. The next day will be for the LGBTQ. For another night, it will we have children as audiences. On another night, we also have leaders from different communities. So it will be a curated series of performances, but we're looking at bringing it in different communities, not just in the Philippines. But to do that, we have to partner with a local theater company in every country, because they know the context more. So it's like bringing a performance module, and they are to localize it when it goes to their country.
Okay, but I understand Gobierno is focused on that political context. But if you were to bring it to other ASEAN countries, would it still be focused on the people's reaction to the state leaders, or would you consider changing up the context and the theme of the performance?
Yeah, Gobierno basically means government in English, and it also depends. So we're looking at the project being flexible in terms of from micro to macro, like even doing it in small villages where they just like look at the dynamics of their community or community leaders or governance. This idea is that the government is the people is the government. So it also depends on the context. So for example, in Korea, our partners are looking at the idea of the Seoul Ferry, the Seoul Ferry incident, and how the government responded to that. And but now times are changing. Or even in Japan, we are looking at more dealing with the youth culture. So the youth, asking the youth that, what is your ideal government? So it changes based on the context of each country, and of course based on the based on the vision of our partner
Okay.
companies,
All
or
right.
where they think it is relevant to respond to.
Right. So it can be pretty flexible as well in that case then.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we are actually going to take a short break right now. So when we come
Okay.
back, we'll talk more about your newest venture in Philippines as well as what you're working on in Australia.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're with Gowri here on your Anything Can Happen Friday. And with me today is JK Anicoche all the way from the Philippines. And he's been sharing with us about his ventures with Sipat Lawin. And for this part, I would like to ask you about your trip to Japan and what have you been working on with them?
Okay. So for the past few months, since last year, I've been part of the HANDS project of Japan Foundation. So we've been researching in different parts of, in different ASEAN countries and Japan, of the best practices by creatives and social workers and development workers in response to disasters. So for disaster preparedness, mitigation, and response. We've been researching on how artists responded to post-disaster situations and how they've used creativity in dealing with disasters, working with scientists, technologists, and people from different expertise. So right now we are in the we created this deal project, as we call it, the Disaster Education Experiential Learning,
Okay.
in Tacloban City. Tacloban City is one of the most devastated areas during the Typhoon Haiyan in 2013. So the city is now slowly recovering, but it was washed away, the whole city and the nearby cities and whole different provinces. That was in 2013. So in 2013, I responded as a teacher with the Department of Education, providing alternative modules to teachers post-disaster because they cannot use the classrooms,
Right.
because they use it as evacuation centers.
Yes.
But now I'm working again in Tacloban alongside child rights people who child rights advocates and some game designers to create this disaster education experiential learning module, where we were working with specific communities to provide to create a module where to create a module that they can use in creating stories and games to teach children about disasters.
Okay.
So it's a mixture of storyfication, gamification, and at the same time integrating children's rights, because children are the most vulnerable in times of disaster.
Yes.
Of course, physically and emotionally. So we plan to, after creating the module, the communities will create their own stories and their own activities, like a story laboratory or game laboratory that can teach how children how to prepare for disasters. And we intend to we hope that this module becomes very much available in different communities and adapted based on their needs. Yeah, so that's one of the research and works that we're doing.
So you're trying to bring that to Japan as well to help them to see how they can cope with tragedies.
We learned a lot from the Japan experience. A lot of artists working there, but we because we're working on a very local context, so let's see if it's also possible to continue this tradition in other countries. But of course, this is also the time for a lot of contextualization in terms of like art making. So we always change content based on the context.
And when you're working with the children, do you only focus on preparing them on how to face disasters, or do you also do a post-disaster thing where you approach the kids and teach them how to deal with these tragedies?
For now, the deal project is specifically for preparedness, but at the
Okay.
same time, we also integrated some frameworks for response
Okay.
or post disaster. So, for example, stories can be used to release, reflect, and redirect. We are teaching communities how they can change, for example, the perspective or the story of the rain, because
Mm-hmm.
rain is something that's traumatic to children. But again, if you shift the story, rain can also be the nurturer, the one
Right.
that provides nurture for plants, for the food that we eat. So it's always about our preoccupation is and how we tell our stories, so which can be very helpful, be it in
Uh-huh.
preparedness or in response.
Okay. And I'm wondering as well, have you had any critics or skeptics who would probably tell you that how could performing arts possibly help someone in coping with a tragedy? They would need like probably to see a psychiatrist or something of a different level.
Yeah, of course, a lot of people are saying that the preoccupation of art should only be in the arts,
Mm-hmm.
and social work is just primarily social work. But
Yes.
to say that is to say that is to limit the capacity of art to reach people. Or if we go back to the very origin of performance or theater, in particular, it's a collective gathering. It's a community sharing before it became the commercial theater as we know it. That
Mm-hmm.
you buy a ticket to a show, but theater and storytelling is something that is shared by communities, and I think that's one that is very particular to ASEAN or to Asian countries. This whole idea of collectivity instead of celebrating individuality. More than
Mm-hmm.
individuality, we are not just dealing with survival alone, but it's about surviving together. So, and the theater has a capacity to gather people together and talk to each other and share experiences together,
Mm-hmm.
and build this collective imagination and collective action. And that is where I am. That's the part of performance that I'm really keen on developing. Sipat Lawin's interest is in performance to performative every day. So what can we learn from performance that can inform the way we work in our everyday performance in
Mm-hmm.
life?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense too. And art has been spilling over in other areas as well. Where we have people with cerebral palsy or even traumatized people are starting to resort to art therapy because they seem to have a better result. And
Yes.
moving on from there, maybe you can also tell us more about what else is Sipat Lawin doing in order to sort of, maybe not revolutionize, but sort of to shift the paradigm of people's conventional idea of performing arts.
Sipat Lawin is very much into developing the contemporary performance scene. In the Philippines or maybe in most countries
Mhm.
in Asia, heritage is very important. Cultural heritage is one thing, and it's really good that there are a lot of cultural workers and artists working in preserving heritage. But our preoccupation is not just in heritage, because I think there are a lot of artists are already doing that. Sipat Lawin is focused in not repeating history, but in creating new histories
Okay.
in terms of performance making or in terms of our exchanges in society or environment. So how well, of course, it's very challenging, not just in the Philippines but in different countries in ASEAN. If you are an emerging artist and you want to create works that are hybrid, that are like intermedia, making use of different medium together, and
Right.
people can make sense of. There are very few platforms that can help you develop this kind of work. So it is our goal, it is our
Okay.
dream to create a platform for. It is our goal to create a platform for developing new works by artists,
Okay.
without the pressure of commerce, pressure of ticket sales. And we are using this platform to give provocations to artists. Like, for example, for the next 2 years, we are asking about the possibility of performance and social innovation.
Okay.
So it's also framing the way artists look, the way they create works. So if we channel it toward like social innovation, our question is: can performance really inform the social? Can the social inform the way we create performances? Those are the questions that we're asking, and we're glad that for the past how many years we have created a network of artists who are creating dynamic new works, fusing different media and working with different communities, online or on the ground. And there's not much support in the Philippines, but just to have a community that can give you a different form of support. So in terms of like skills or resources, or even shared spaces for her. So that's very useful, and that's very encouraging for a lot of artists.
So if you're looking to do interdisciplinary work, Sipat Lawin is the place to be. Okay.
Yes.
And you also mentioned something about not getting enough support, and I'm curious as well about the theatre scene in Manila, especially for the kind of work that you are working on. Do you easily get sponsors or people to support, or does it usually have to come from yourself?
The commercial theater industry is very much booming. The musicals, the Broadway musical imports, original Filipino musicals are now. We're glad that they're having audiences, really, and there's this new revived energy and appreciation for the theater, at least for the commercial theater. But for contemporary works, it's still a challenge to get support, because these are things that are yet to be conceived. No, these are things that are very complex to explain, especially if you have a society that, or a government or a country that equates art making, culture making to just plain tourism, instead of like looking at it from a social development point of view or cultural development. They're very limited resources, but we've been exploring different modes of production. So in 2011, I started exploring the idea of blank ticketing. So we give audiences a blank ticket before the start of the show, and at the end of the show, they put the amount of their perceived value of the exchange, and based on their economic capacity also. So if you are a student, and you don't have much money, but you really appreciate it, it's very much appreciated whatever you put there. So this makes the artist and the audience accountable for each other. So of course, if I'm an artist, of course I will do my best to offer an exchange with you, but at the same time, you as an audience, for you to if you really appreciate it, then you have to help me sustain my practice. So those are the things we're exploring. Sometimes we also get like private sponsorship, but it's a trap. Any artist would know that sometimes if you are promoting a product and you're affiliated to all these corporate companies, it's more ideological and fundamental in terms of like, do we really believe? I think the artists are becoming more ethical, and they're questioning the mode of production of how we're doing things nowadays. So aside from that, there are like available grants from partnerships with different countries. Those because in the Philippines we only have one commission, not even a department of culture. We don't have a department of culture, so we are one grant giving commission.
Kind of funny, I think, that you don't have a department of culture. Has people been rooting for that, or starting a movement to make demands for it? There
are many organizations of artists who are pushing for a bill to establish like an artist bill and create a better industry. But I just hope that this law that we're passing now is very inclusive, because it's challenging. Because if we only have the people working in commercial theater to benefit from it, then how about the people who are working with indigenous people, people who chose to work in theaters that are away from the spotlight, working in faraway communities, So it has to be very inclusive in terms of upholding the rights of artists and giving more support to the kinds of work that we do.
So I think whoever that's going to be the next president of the Philippines better look into taking care of the artists in the country as well.
Yes, that's because we also have this stigma of the artist, that the artist sometimes create for himself, and it's not really it's just one way of doing things. But now the artist is slowly becoming, not really slowly, but the artist is now going back to the communities and working large scale, involving different people, and the role of the artist is slowly shifting. So, well, of course, that's at least how we experience it now. But it's a long way to go. It's a lot of work to do. But the presence and energy shared by a lot of people is very much important to encourage even the next generation of people to continue creating.
Right. So we will take another short break. When we come back, I'll talk to you more about the way forward the theatre industry in Manila.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're still with Gowri here on your Anything Can Happen Friday. And of course with me I have JK Anicoche, who is the artistic director of Sipat Lawin. And JK, perhaps for this part, I would like to ask you more about what are the future projects or new ventures that Sipat Lawin is looking at, probably within the next few months or next year for 2016.
Okay, Sipat Lawin is slowly evolving into becoming a contemporary cultural laboratory, which means we have an education unit where we are going to curate a series of courses and workshops as continuing education for artists, especially for performance makers who needs support in terms of different skills. So that's one. We are also looking at developing. Of course, we have the Gobierno project coming. And it's a 4-year development. And in 2016 and 2017, we have the Carnaval Performance and Social Innovation Festival that we spearheaded in 2013. So it's going to continue. This 2016, we're featuring projects, partnerships of different local and international artists that responded to our question on performance and social innovation. So aside from that, the Love Project is going to become a musical.
Okay.
And it will be produced internationally in Australia, or maybe even in other countries. So we're looking forward to that. Also, our individual artists who are members of the ensemble are looking at creating more solo works. So I am also starting to produce more solo performances where I'm looking at facilitation as performance. So many things going on.
Right.
And we are also renewing our children's wing, our program for children, and by children and with children. So these are the projects that we have. Also, it's our dream to create regional hubs in different parts of the Philippines, but it's a long-term plan to create, because we are primarily based in Manila. So if we can create it in southern Philippines or in the Visayas or northern Philippines, it will be interesting to create a laboratory and space for development for artists who are in the regions.
Okay.
Yes, and a lot of collaborations with different artists from different countries.
So you're definitely looking at collaborating with other ASEAN countries as well, getting in touch with different theatre companies.
Yes, it's very interesting because there's a lot of synchronicity or sameness in terms of development of practices in contemporary performance in different countries, as what I've also observed. So, there's this also desire of making performances more accessible, and there's also this exploration of different companies in different countries on interactivity, immersive theater. So those kinds of work, it's also finding its niche, and it's growing, be it in Malaysia or in Manila or in Thailand. And these are new forms that are being explored by many artists. We live in exciting times, I think.
Yes, we do. Before we finish, I want to ask you, if you can change one thing about the theater scene in Manila at the moment, what would it be?
Wow. That's a wonderful question. If there's a possibility of changing, and this is more not really dreaming but hoping,
Yes.
is to shift. I just hope that a lot of companies shift the mode of production and invest more on the artists instead of spectacle or
Right.
and design, and really invest in the development of artists and create more spaces and opportunities for these artists to fail and learn faster, to fail fast and learn faster, and to develop more work. So I think and yeah.
So when you say invest more in the artists, you meant like skill-wise, like send them for more trainings so they get more exposures, send them to other countries to participate more.
Yeah, but not just that, but I think what we need are more discovery platforms.
Okay.
And sharing of resources. And we also hope that we also advance the level of criticality or performance criticism so as to advance our practice.
Okay. And we're almost at the end of our segment now. Before we finish, perhaps you can tell us if people want to learn more about Sipat Lawin and their projects, future projects, where can they find out more?
We are very much online. You can find us on Facebook, and we have our website, Sipat Ensemble.com, and we are on Twitter at Sipat Lawin. Sipat means bird's eye view. Lawin is the hawk that roams the mountains. So, yeah. And you can also visit our festival website, the carnavalfestival.com, and we're very much interested in exchanging with different people about ideas. So let us know. If you happen to be in Manila, please visit us. You have a home in Manila.
Okay.
And we can just
brainstorm and exchange ideas.
And yes, it's a dynamic a very dynamic scene.
Well, it was very nice talking to you, and hope you'll be back in Malaysia to work out some other collaboration and come up with something cool for.
Yeah, thank you very much.